Hi and welcome to BrightTalk, coming to you live from Big Data London in London Olympia. I'm Tim Carmichael from Ensifera, and I'm joined today by Michael O'Connell, the Chief Analytics Officer of TIBCO. Michael, welcome, and thank you very much for taking the trouble to join us this morning.
Very good.
I'm fascinated about the role of Chief Analytics Officer and what it means to the business. Perhaps you'd like to start by just telling us a bit about yourself, what your role is and what your main responsibilities are for TIBCO.
Absolutely. Chief Analytics Officer is an offensive role, so we're looking to help our customers use our software to find insights and turn those insights into actions and operationalize those on the business. So whether it's visual analytics, data science, machine learning, how do you identify an insight and how do you kind of put that into a process so that it works for you day in, day out. That's the general goal of a Chief Analytics Officer, and at TIBCO, I drive a lot of innovation, so I lead our AI efforts and machine learning efforts across the company. We have a number of products in those areas. So innovation is a big deal. I also have one foot in the product and one foot in the customers, so I help our customers configure our products to get the most out of them, to get the most insights, drive the most actions. And then I also help with our ecosystem and our community. So we have a very active community of folks contributing new configurations or looking for advice on best practices, how to drive data prep, how to drive data science, machine learning, visual analytics, how to configure all of that. And we have a self-help, self-service approach to all of the above.
Sounds like a fascinating remit and lots of breadth and lots of different ways of facing to your customers and to your team. So tell me a bit more about some of those success stories with AI and analytics and what's trending with data science from your perspective.
Yeah, so AI is obviously on a big hyper-growth curve still, and it's exciting to be part of that space. So I think recommender systems are one area of success that we continue to apply to a bunch of areas. Anomaly detection systems, so being able to detect anomalies in data that are coming in based on historical analysis of data from the past. So being able to have models that detect fraud, for example, that detect some kind of anomaly in energy production. We're big in the high-tech manufacturing sector, so finding anomalies in the manufacturing process, outliers. How do you characterize an anomaly and how do you take an action to prevent an anomaly or drive an insight from a set of data to take an action? So those are some areas where AI and machine learning and visual analytics have been successful. Also, patient diagnostics is a big area, healthcare. You see across the board, inventory management, supply chain, logistics. All of the industry sectors have their own version of how to apply analytics and data science to their unique business problems with that context of that industry in order to drive insight to take an action.
And so what is TIBCO's particular position as far as big data analytics is concerned? Where do you position yourselves?
So we go to market with our connected intelligence portfolio of products, and that has two broad sections to it. There's one where we interconnect all the data, systems, APIs, our messaging, event processing, business process management, those types of products. And then our analytics layer, we have data management, we have visual analytics, a couple of products there. We have event processing, real-time streaming, master data management, data catalogs, data virtualization. So pretty much soup to nuts from all the way from collecting the data, managing it, preparing it, feature engineering, into visual analytics, interactive data discovery, insight discovery, data science for codifying models and rules, and then deploying that out into operations to take real-time events and apply the insights that you get from visual analytics and data science onto the event stream in order to drive an action.
So that's your solution space. That's the set, a very broad spectrum of skills and capabilities and software that you bring to your customers. But what do you see on the main business drivers that you're responding to?
Yeah, the business drivers are a little bit different in different industries, right? So, anomaly detection in manufacturing is, run-to-run control of the product, root cause analysis, yield optimization. These are some of the use cases that are derived from the notion of keeping the process in sync, and to keep it, to identify the anomalies and quickly take an action to correct them. Now if you look at, say, a patient in a hospital, it's the same sorts of things, but now you've got a biological system, right? So now you're looking at data coming in from various monitoring systems, the electronic medical record of the admission process, and you're really looking at how to maintain the human in this case. So it's almost like predictive maintenance for humans in that setting. So you look at different industries, in telco we're looking at optimizing networks. A lot of industries we're looking at customer engagement. How do you best engage your customer when they're on your property? How do you understand the context of the customer across channels to drive an action? If they're a banking customer, retail banking customer, maybe they've got a mortgage with you, maybe they're using online banking, they've got a credit card, you're managing their wealth, that sort of thing. How do you get a single view of the customer across these different business applications so that you know when someone's on your property who that customer is, what's the most relevant thing to put in front of them? How do you engage them on their terms in a personal manner? I think that's some of the keys to customer engagement. So you look at all these different areas, managing machines and equipment, predictive maintenance, managing patients in hospitals, driving customer engagement, managing networks. All of these areas in different industries have great potential that's being realized right now by applying visual analytics, data science, and taking the insights and applying those into the operational fabric to drive an action, next best action, to optimize that, drive revenue with your customer, drive efficiency with your equipment, all of that.
So it sounds like in many areas, notwithstanding the changing context, there's actually a common set of problems around which you could build a common solution approach, or at least an approach to those problems. Is that how you're finding it at TIBCO?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So some of the things that I mentioned as big success areas for, for AI, for visual analytics, have been just that. So, I've been talking quite a bit about anomaly detection so far in the conversation, but understanding regular behavior and understanding what's an anomaly outside of that, that kind of general concept drives a lot of value, right? So it's like, is this transaction potentially fraudulent, or is it risky? Is this data point coming in from a patient risky for their prognosis? Is this data point coming in from a customer on a website? How do I make the most of that engagement with that customer? So it's really, in general, looking at the past, understanding the patterns, building some models, understanding behaviors, and then applying that to new data that's coming in to drive the most efficient action. I mean, that's the general thread, and to then embed that operationally into the infrastructure so that new data coming in is being treated in the most optimal way. I mean, that's the general concept.
And how are your customers responding to this, the potential of being able to take trended data and do good things with it, and find this insight and be able to action this insight? Are you finding they're responding positively to that, or are they just a little bit curious and confused in places?
No, I think there's a lot of enthusiasm for this, and I think the exciting thing about working for TIBCO and working with our customers is we have that full stack. So we can help you manage the data in your data lake or in your database. We can help you wrangle that data to get some features, engineer some features, and build out some visual analysis, derive a data science machine learning model, and then deploy that into production to apply itself on new data that are coming in, and then drive an action. So that full end-to-end, we have the full set of capabilities to do data management and historical data, apply the insights into real-time data and embed that into the operational infrastructure. So I think one thing that I've been really excited about, and also that our customers get excited about, is that end-to-end capability. It's not just a report that sits on somebody's desk that's nice to have that doesn't drive any action. The value is driving the action from the analytic that can then engage a customer or take proactive care on a piece of equipment. It's getting the analytic into operations where the value gets generated, and that's the exciting part of having that end-to-end capability that our customers love about us.
And I think we've all been in that position, haven't we, where we've delivered some insight and there's that ta-da moment, and the customer goes, yeah, not so much. Right. You're thinking, come on now, do something with that. Getting that harness and harnessing that insight to it, so it's exploited as a good decision, for instance, or as a good action. That's really where the value is here.
Yeah, no, exactly. It doesn't do you any good to have a report, from what's happened in the past. You've got to figure out what is the insight there that can drive the future action. That's where the value gets generated. So see, a lot of the vendors out there just do these reporting solutions. Doesn't interest me, doesn't interest our customers. It's finding the insight it's not just the what, it's the why. How do you find the insight, and then how do you take an optimal action from that, and how do you put that into your operational infrastructure to do that on a regular basis? That's where the fun is, and that's where the value is, and that's what gets me excited and our customers excited.
I can understand why. I kind of liken this to understanding what's going on, has been going on, and why. It's a bit like driving a car looking through the rearview mirror.
Right.
When you start to get predicting what's going to happen next and prescripting what would be the best optimal course of action, you're looking through the windscreen.
Right, exactly.
And that's where your customers want to be. They want to be looking through the windscreen as they go forward.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, data coming in, well, how do I make sense of it based on what I've seen in the past, and how do I drive the next action? That's where the value is, yep.
So talking of driving, you're here with Matt Harris today, who's the head of IT at Mercedes AMG Petronas. Clearly, the great news is you guys together have just won the Constructors' Championship. Do you want to tell us a bit more about your partnership with them, about how you've added value, and the whole use cases that you've brought to bear to deliver success there?
Absolutely. Well, this past weekend we won the Constructor Championship, which was awesome, especially for the guys back in Brackley here. The previous weekend we won the Drivers' Championship. Lewis, for the umpteenth time, has won the Champion Driver of the Year again. So getting the double header is particularly satisfying this year. But no, our partnership with Mercedes is outstanding. All the things we've just been talking about, we apply to the car and to the driver. So the notion of anomaly detection, doing that in real time, and understanding what is the best course of action to take under a certain set of conditions, that's a big part of it. So we've been working on the data science side, building out machine learning models to figure out, for example, when is the best time and the best position to try and overtake the car in front. Now that depends on what tires we have on our car, how old they are compared to the car in front. It depends on the position of the track, the latent speed differential, a variety of factors that we've figured out how they affect our ability to get on past the car in front, and might take another lap or two to do that, but how do you initiate that, and how do you drive the race strategy to accommodate that? And we do literally millions of simulations. Each race is 2 weeks apart, and we take the data from the previous race and the historical races and queue that up to figure out how we're going to simulate what's going to happen in next week's race, and how do we develop the strategy for certain tires and pits and so on to help drive that. So strategy has been a big part of it, and some of the data science involved in that. We also use our visual analytics products extensively to bring in data from historical races, look at configurations of the car, that sort of thing. We look at, in the R&D, how to set up the car and how to configure the car. So, for example, one of the projects we did was around the gearbox. So Lewis changes gears a lot, maybe 3,000 plus times per race. And how do we make sure that is really smooth? A gear change takes about 15 milliseconds. In the lab, we get data every nanosecond on several hundred variables, and we actually do anomaly detection to figure out what are some of the combinations of those parameters that can be risky for driving some anomalous pattern in the gear change.
So this is a fundamental Internet of Things problem set, isn't it? You're getting live stream data from the vehicle, telemetry and position data. What's the challenge there, bringing together lots of different sources of data and integrating them to deliver an insight in real time?
Yeah, great question. So part of the data ingest and data access piece, we created a number of custom connectors for the different types of data that we get from the car and from the race. And so our products are very configurable in that regard. So being able to pull in data very quickly means that the engineers in Brackley can quickly get their data into our visual analytics products, quickly study the data, find anomalies, as you mentioned. And then as we figure those out, we can either trap for those in how we set up the car and just to avoid them proactively, or we can identify them as they're happening and help drive an action. So yeah, all those things we've talked about earlier in the conversation around anomaly detection apply in spades when it comes to Mercedes. But in a nutshell, figuring out how to do R&D to configure the car, figuring out how to develop the strategy for the race coming up, and then figuring out how to respond as things maybe go awry, or as you get an opportunity to overtake the car in front, for example. Bring all those pieces together has been part of the fun of this, and yeah, the general tools of visual analytics, data science, data engineering have all been brought to bear through this wonderful partnership we have with Mercedes.
I love the idea that here you've got a set of optimization and prediction use cases combined with decision support, which is fundamentally what this takes you to, so that the race director can tell the driver what to do, or the driver can feedback what he thinks he's going to do. And it's that combination of the data, the technology, and the people, skilled people in their domains, that brings this all together, part of a big whole team ethos.
Yeah, it's amazing. I was fortunate enough to go to some of the races this year and be above the pit and see the 1.82 seconds to change 4 tires. It's kind of amazing. We worry about, in the qualifyings, we worry about down to the 100th of a second, to get the pole position, that sort of thing. It's very competitive. And having that team just, top to bottom, having all playing an important role. And then, putting the headphones on and listening to the strategy guy that we work with, talking to the driver as they go around the car and understanding some of the data insights and how that affects operations. Yeah, it's really exciting. It's been a fun partnership. You'll hear about it today. I'm going to mention it in my talk, and then Matt from Mercedes will be talking about it in his talk as well. But they're big users of our Spotfire product, which is, I've been mentioning today, goes across all these use cases. Sure. And we've announced today the launch of Spotfire 10. That's a highly optimized version of the software. It has an inbuilt AI engine that automatically finds insights and suggests those to you. It does real-time data streaming. It has a natural language query interface. You can actually have a conversation with it to drive your analysis. Combining that with a reimagined user interface and all the usual things that people know and love about Spotfire. It's an exciting day for us here, and we're happy to announce it at the Big Data London. Well,
congratulations, and what's interesting about that is it starts giving a little bit of an indication as to what's coming up. So I'd like to take us away from that very specific example of that customer you're supporting and ask you to zoom out, please. And so for my last question, how about, because let's face it, if you're exploiting data and analytics right, you're in the predictions game. Why don't we get Michael O'Connell's predictions for what's coming up next in data analytics and artificial intelligence?
Sure thing. Well, we touched on some of the successes earlier of AI and machine learning. And some of the revolution has been involved in natural language processing, natural language querying, advanced methods for finding outliers, anomaly detection, recommender systems. These are all things that we're riding a nice wave on. And I think, as we get to the next generation of data science and artificial intelligence, one of the things we're working on is, we've embedded AI into our software. So for example, in Spotfire 10, as I mentioned, we're suggesting to the end user, here's the structure in the data, here's what we suggest, how you might build your analysis. So the next generation of that is putting data science on top of those data science methods. So data science squared, I call it. So basically, we're now collecting information from how people are using the AI engine that we've created, and we're using that to crowdsource amongst the people who are using it to improve the suggestions that we give to the end user. Now those suggestions can be improved both personally for an individual user, but when you have a company deploying our software, we're collecting that usage data across all of the people using the product and doing some crowdsourcing recommendations. So we're doing data science on the use of our data science engine to drive a next generation of crowdsourcing and insights. So that's one big thing I see for the future. The second big thing I see for the future is this notion, as I mentioned, how do you take AI and machine learning systems recommendations that you've generated with data and with a customer, and how do you put that into real time? So we're doing that already, putting that into operations, as I mentioned to you, finding insights in a model or a visual analysis, putting that onto the real-time data that's coming through and driving in action. But this notion of real-time AI, we're taking a much more general look at that at TIBCO. So we're saying, if you've got a machine learning model or a rule or whatever, we're masters at doing that, managing that. We've been doing that for 20 years. Why don't you give that to us and we will manage that across your hybrid cloud infrastructure and give you the benefit of crowdsourcing in that arena as well. So you think about the early days of the internet where Cisco said, give me your TCP/IP packet, and we'll manage it, we'll route it. I'm saying to the world, give me your machine learning model. At TIBCO, we'll manage it, we'll route it, we'll put it into operations, we'll measure the performance of it, we'll do data science on data science, and that new age that we see where models become more ubiquitous, we're looking to be the Cisco of that world and take all comers, no matter where you've developed your model, and pushing that out on our infrastructure to manage that in a cloud, hybrid cloud environment.
Michael, thanks very much for all your explanation and your candor and your insights. It's a sneak preview for our BrightTalk viewers here. So that's it from us for this first intervention from Big Data London this morning. There's more to come from BrightTalk. Thank you very much.
Thanks.